Hello and welcome everyone to Ukrainian Blockchain Hub. I'm Maria Wovchuk and I'm glad to present here Monero contributor Diego Salazar, and you will have the chance now to find out everything you want to about one of the most private and fungible cryptocurrency. Diego, hi.
Hello, how's it going?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm doing pretty okay.
You just returned from a DEFCON conference, actually 2019, which was held recently in Las Vegas, and Monero had a form of village there. So you were a speaker and moderator. Can you tell that Monero Village was a success?
Yeah, it was, I would definitely call it a large success. For those who don't know, DEFCON is the biggest hacker convention in the world, and it takes place every year in Las Vegas. Last year, Monero had a village, and we did good enough that they allowed us to come back. So we were able to, they gave us a bigger room, so we had more space for speakers and for some tables and stuff. And I would say that this year was much smoother, much cleaner than last year, and I'm very proud. There was a lot of people that came through, a lot of traffic, and a lot of people were able to learn about Monero. It's interesting that Monero was the only named cryptocurrency that had a presence there. There was kind of another village that was a blockchain village, and we were friends with those guys, but nobody else, no other named cryptocurrency besides Monero had a village, and last year and this year. And that's really just because Monero has this kind of grassroots hacker ideology at its core that really works well with kind of what DEFCON has going on.
Okay, the question is, which topics were discussed there? You mentioned some.
Sure. Yeah, we had a huge variety of speakers actually from a lot of different places. We talked about, we had some people from the EFF talking about kind of open source and encryption. We had people talking about Monero's specific privacy technologies. We had Tari there, which is a company building a blockchain on top of Monero for digital assets. So there was a huge variety of speakers, and it wasn't all just Monero related. So many of it was privacy related, blockchain privacy, encryption, and the like.
What have you discovered? Something new, probably.
I actually didn't get to listen to a whole lot of the talks because I was running around making sure there was no fires everywhere and getting all the volunteers going. Figurative, theoretical fires, just little emergencies that pop up here and there, and helping the volunteers just learn what to do. But I was able to listen to a few different talks. Some of them were quite good. I listened to one great one on mining, and kind of breaking down the future of proof of work future of proof of work in terms of, does it have a future? And if so, because a lot of projects are doing proof of stake or, proof of authority or different forms of consensus, different forms of reaching consensus. And so really kind of just breaking down whether or not proof of work has a future and what that future might look like. And so that was pretty interesting for me.
You know what, we will discuss it, proof of work, later a bit in terms of Monero, because it's really important. Next year, I think I definitely should visit DEFCON.
I'd love to have you.
Okay, thank you. The thing is, actually, I watched some topics there discussed, and I've seen you were talking about Beam cryptocurrency, which is on the MimbleWimble protocol. And is it a serious rival for Monero, taking into account, for example, to solve some business problems, taking into account that using Lightning Network, it may be much more scalable than Monero?
So MimbleWimble is an interesting topic. By and large, the MimbleWimble protocol is regarded with respect quite highly in the Monero community. It doesn't do everything Monero does in terms of privacy. So it makes a trade-off. Monero decides to be as private as you could possibly get in terms of trustlessness. But we do sacrifice our scalability in terms of storage and bandwidth, not necessarily in terms of throughput. But MimbleWimble decides to have less privacy, so it can enable some scalability features, which these features are really, really cool. They have the ability, it's like, if I send you a Monero and then you send it back to me and I send it to you and you send it to me and I send it to you, really, instead of remembering every single one of those transactions, there was like 5 transactions there, it just remembers the end result, which is maybe that you now have the Monero. So it erases, it forgets all these other 4 transactions on And the only one that's saved to the hard disk is just the one that I sent to you last. So it's able to reduce a whole bunch of storage on the computer disk.
Mhm.
That's kind of one of MimbleWimble's big claim to fame. That's why it's so scalable. But to do that, it has to sacrifice, and I'm going to mess this up because I'm not extremely well versed in MimbleWimble technology. But it sacrifices because like the current MimbleWimble implementations, which the biggest ones are Grin and Beam, they do not have ring signatures is what I believe they don't have, which Monero does have. And admittedly, it is Monero's weakest part of its privacy protocol is ring signatures, but it does still add something quite important. So MimbleWimble does have other privacy features depending on the implementation, but it's not as private as Monero. So really a competitor to Monero, although I would hesitate to say something like that, but if we were to think about a competitor to Monero, Monero would really only be looking at something that is as private as itself in a trustless way. And in this moment, we're using this definition, there isn't really a competitor that any major player.
So you consider Monero to be the best?
Yeah, I do. Whether it remains the best as time goes on, who knows? You know, just nobody has committed to as hard of privacy as Monero has. Everyone is willing to make a sacrifice on privacy in order to get something else, whether it's more favorability with regulators, whether it's scalability, whether it's whatever. So I would like to see another project that does not compromise on privacy at all,
Mhm.
and does it in a trustless way. So as an example, we do have Zcash, which is as private or more private than Monero, depending on certain variables, but it requires a trusted setup, right? It requires a component of trust to that. So in that way, I think Monero also stands on its own. So I would like to, like I said, I would like to see. I'm not married to Monero. I'm not a Monero maximalist. I'm not like there is only Monero. If there is another cryptocurrency that is willing to hard commit to privacy without making any sacrifices and does it in a trustless manner, it would probably be seen as a competitor to Monero. I myself would be very excited because it's competition, and competition drives both projects forward. You know, competition generally makes everything better for everyone. So I want there to be competition for Monero.
Okay, but still, why have you chosen Monero? You joined Monero team 3 years ago.
Yes, that's correct. I I actually I lucked out. Okay, I really did because I am a designer. I do web work, some UI UX work, right? And um, 3 years ago, I was just starting my little design firm, and I was trying to find a niche because design is a crowded space. And the niche that I decided on was kind of open source and cryptocurrency. And Monero was the one with the absolute worst website. So they were the ones I approached first and
This
started
was the
talking with
reason,
them.
actually, yeah?
Yes, it really was. And so they're like, I said, I could redo your guys' website. And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. But maybe you should read what we're about, you know, so you can understand our ideology, so you can make a good website, you know. So I'm like, okay. So I start reading through their stuff, and I'm like, goodness, this stuff is powerful and it can change the world. So I did end up redoing their website, but I'm still around and I'm still doing stuff for Monero because it's something I actually believe in. So who knows what would have happened if I would have discovered Verge or BitConnect first, and they were the ones that I was working with. But yeah, that's my little story.
Okay, but the question is why, how Monero may change the world in the future. You mentioned that. How do you think?
Yeah, so I really do believe that Monero has the power to change things for a lot of people. The lack of privacy in this world, especially this increase as we increasingly rely on appliances, digital things, our privacy is shrinking. And it is shrinking very slowly to the point that it's difficult to gauge on the day-to-day life of people. And people really won't notice it until a lot of it is already gone. And the truth is, a lot of it is already gone. And more people are waking up to what they're giving away in terms of information. Things like Facebook leaks, Cambridge Analytica, all these things are kind of waking people up to this idea that our privacy has actually been gone for quite some time.
Mhm.
And tools need to be available, readily available for people to take back their privacy if this is something that they want to do. And it's very interesting that here in the first world, where I live in the United States, really the worst thing, or some of the worst things we can deal with when it comes with lack of privacy for the everyday person, is just targeted ads that are tailored specifically to you. But this is not going to be the case in several other countries, maybe under more oppressive regimes, maybe that it can actually be dangerous having a lack of privacy, because you can lose your house, you can lose your money, you can lose your freedom, go to jail, you could lose your life in some very extreme cases if somebody knows what you're doing, whether that's a nation state or whatever. And in many cases, money is a really big deal. You know, they just follow the money, they just see where you got your money, where you spend your money, and they can say, just from that, okay, you're planning to do something bad, we're going to put you in jail or something. So there's a lot of marginalized people, a lot of people on the fringes of society. They are the ones that suffer most from lack of privacy. So the reason why I'm in Monero, and how I believe it can change the world, is offering a tool, not the tool, but a tool that people can use to protect themselves in terms of privacy for their finances.
Talking about the privacy of finances and transactions, how do you feel about that Monero has become actually the cryptocurrency which is used for dark business?
Okay, so
trafficking, especially, this is one of the top topics discussed.
Sure. So the actual truth is that fiat cash, in my case, US dollars, is the currency for dark transactions. Okay, so
understood.
Illicit transactions done with US dollars just absolutely completely dwarfs anything done with cryptocurrencies. So under these same ideas and models, we should be getting rid of US dollars also. Right? If we're talking about we should get rid of Monero because it's used for bad stuff, we should get rid of money because it's used for bad stuff. And obviously that's not an option. Okay.
Okay. So how do you feel about Federal Reserve System?
That is a massive topic, and I'm not sure we're going to have time to cover that today. But moving the next step, actually, Bitcoin is still used for more illicit transactions than Monero. Bitcoin is used for a lot of illicit transactions. But a recent study, I heard this, though, I didn't read it myself, but I heard it from one of my researcher friends. And I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was like less than 15%. I think it may have even been less than 10% of Bitcoin transactions were used for illicit things, which is an encouraging number. It is an encouraging number because it shows that, most people are using Bitcoin for other things. And I don't see any reason why Monero wouldn't be the same. Because back when Bitcoin first came out, it was also known as the currency used for dark stuff, for bad stuff, right? But kind of as time went on, businesses started accepting it, people started using it. It has since moved away from that. And I see no reason why right now, Monero is the one with the bad reputation, but I see no reason as it gets adoption, more merchants start using it and people start using it for regular stuff, that it just becomes similar to Bitcoin. It's just like, well, this is just what where people use for everyday things. I think it's more of an optics problem, how people are perceiving Monero currently, more than reality in terms of what Monero is actually used for.
Okay, so just really soon, Monero, you will release a report on Monero's gains for the last 6 months. So can you tell us a bit more about Monero accomplishments for the first half of 2018?
Yeah, so we got some pretty big stuff under our belts that just happened. So I know this is kind of past, but this is also kind of future. The biggest one on the horizon is probably RandomX, which it is a proof of work algorithm that is CPU friendly and is made to ward off ASICs.
ASICs, yeah.
Hopefully for good, but we'll see how that works out. And if you want to learn more about how it does that, you can do some research. There's a lot of information readily available out there. But we just recently got not only the code and everything completed, but we got it all audited. We got 4 different audit companies to look through RandomX as a protocol and then our implementation of it. And all of the reviews were very high praise, very few problems, and any problems were very minor. Some optimizations, a couple tweaks were made, and it's looking like it's going to be ready to go into our network upgrade this October. That is something that actually a lot of cryptocurrencies are looking at with great interest. Just see, okay, if this, and there have been several cryptocurrencies that say, okay, if this ends up working for Monero, we may end up adopting RandomX ourselves. They're just going to use us as their little test net there to see if it works as expected.
Which ones may you expect that they will also look at RandomX?
I remember reading one of them that had pledged ASIC resistance. I do not recall offhand because there's just too many shitcoins out there. So I apologize for not remembering my name, for remembering the name of the cryptocurrency. Yeah.
Okay, but still, how do you think will this proof of work algorithm be like the future for proof of work algorithms? Or is it only for Monero? It's one use case and that's it?
No, it would definitely be something that other proof of work currencies, cryptocurrencies would be able to use. It remains to be seen over the long term, which is going to be more secure. Something that is secured by ASICs and something that is secured by kind of everyday CPUs. Because in theory, you may have botnets for one. In theory, you may have centralization with the other. Like there's nobody knows. What I like to say is that all of cryptocurrency as a whole is just one big experiment. And if everybody is running the exact same experiment, so I look at Bitcoin and Litecoin. Litecoin is basically just Bitcoin, but like with a different proof of work algorithm, a couple of things slightly tweaked, but it still has ASICs itself. So really, Litecoin is running the exact same experiment as Bitcoin.
Yes.
Right? So we can't really learn anything different. We have to have different experiments running in parallel so that way we can compare the end results and say, okay, which one was better? So in this case, Bitcoin, by not forking away from ASICs or by not developing a algorithm that is ASIC resistant, they are making an experiment that ASICs are going to be good for the network. Okay. Monero says we don't think ASICs are good for the network, so we're developing an algorithm where it'll be much more difficult for ASICs to be on the network. Doing so,
ASIC resistant.
Right. By doing this, we're running a different experiment, and who knows which one is going to, I mean, people have ideas, people have theories, we can kind of project into the future, but nobody sees the future. So ultimately, this is just going to be a great experiment to see which one is going to be more secure over the long run. And whichever one loses, we'll be able to look at it and see, why did this happen? And then the next currency that comes up can use this autopsy to try to build a better currency for everybody.
I see. The last question. You are now working on one application for Monero. Please tell in details what is it and how it helps the Monero ecosystem.
Sure. So as I said earlier, I do own a design firm, and UIUX is something that I very much enjoy and am passionate about, and if I may say so, I think I'm quite good at. So the Monero GUI, as it currently stands, was made before I entered Monero, and it has since been iterated on and improved upon, and I think it has come to a better place in terms of interface and experience than it was before. But I still think it's got some flaws in it, flaws that can't just be iteratively changed. I think it needs to kind of be redone from the ground up. So I'm personally working on an application interface that will be simple and easy to use, and as a whole, the cryptocurrency space doesn't have a lot of good wallet software. It's just, and this is the case as well with most of open source. They just don't have good interfaces.
This is like your official statement.
Yes, open source has, let me make it a more strong intent statement. Open source has absolutely garbage, trash, horrendous interfaces. There's not a lot of designers in open source, and those designers that are here, they may not necessarily be good. A lot of this comes to the fact that, one, there are not a lot of designers, but two, there's not a lot of money, because iterating on an interface does take time and it does take money. You have to do testing where you get people to use the application and you watch them in various methods. You do different sorts of experiments to see how good is your interface, what needs to be changed, what doesn't need to be changed. big corporations, right, like Slack, like Google, have the money to kind of pay these people and do all of these experiments so they can make their product better and better. Open source is mostly volunteers. You know, it's mostly people working for free. We don't have that kind of money, so it's really hard to effectively conduct these experiments to kind of see how your interface could be improved. And there is a lot of developers who, bless their heart, they do their best. They don't have designers on their team. It's just them working on this stuff, right? So they make the best interface they can, but that's not their specialty. Their specialty is coding and making applications. So the end result in terms of interface is many times severely lacking, not for want of trying, but just because that's not their particular skill set. So that's one thing, not just with Monero, but kind of with open source as a whole, that over time I hope to make a bit of a dent in and try to make open source applications more usable.
Okay, Diego, on this, with this positive statement at the end, I want to thank you for the interview. Actually, once again, I want to tell you, if you were watching our interview, our guest today was Diego Salazar, Monero contributor. I am Maria Vovchuk from Ukrainian Blockchain Hub, as you can see. Thank you for watching and see you next time.